have to vote on that? Is that?
Mr. Chairman, from what I understand from Mr. Bridger, the applicant has asked for this to be withdrawn, but we do have to vote on it at 6 o'clock to withdraw it.
Okay, all right, thank you. And B, I'll be asking someone right now to be asking for a 2-week deferral on that one.
Happy to do that, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I'm not aware of any, well, I actually am aware, F and G. Mr. Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In our preparation of the agenda for items 6F and G, the districts referenced should be both District 5 and 6 for both items. So for tonight's agenda, we'll say District 5 and District 6 for items F and G. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to H, and I believe Councilman Smith, did we not have a question about that? The transport.
Mr. Chair. Where's Mr. Bailey? There. Were you able to get that worked out? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I did see some additional questions earlier today, so I felt like something might be unresolved. I was hoping maybe you'd heard, but that's fine if we need to. Does it cause any issues to your knowledge if this is deferred? Is that problematic from your perspective
Not
at all?
Okay. And as I mentioned this morning, Mr. Shikari was here last week, and I was just unable to get with him because the meeting went long. And
Okay.
I want to make sure both folks understand what's happening and everybody's happy.
Right, and I think
we
there
are.
may
We just
still
need
be
to-
some confusion on how to handle the ADA ramp that would be in the easement and
Okay,
a couple
got
of things like that. So, okay, thanks, Bly.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll likely move for deferral this evening on this item just to make sure that we have enough time to clarify those points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move now to resolutions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
my thing is on. Do you see?
Oh, yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to follow up, just as I was sitting down, you mentioned there might be some issues with the 5 and 6 overlays.
Go ahead.
And that was the correction?
Yes, that will be the correction. We'll combine the districts for.
Oh, I thought there were some issues
No,
with it.
that was it. No,
Okay.
no, that's
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, now we'll move on to resolutions. Would you please read 7F?
A resolution authorizing the renewal of the contract with Henderson, Hutcherson, and McCullough for external audit services for year 3 in the amount of $135,330, year 4 in the amount of $139,160, and year 5 in the amount of $143,100.
Seeing no questions, would you please read J?
A resolution authorizing the mayor to apply for, and if awarded, accept the 2018-2019 State of Tennessee Justice Assistance Grant for the contribution of the Beyond the Walls program for the 3-year period, with the City of Chattanooga as the subrecipient and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Chattanooga as the subcontractor for an amount up to $100,000.
All right, don't see any questions there. I believe Councilman Ledford K., didn't we go over that in committee meeting last week? Watch him. Mr. Attorney, watch him. Might be deliberating over there. Yes, sir. Councilman Henderson.
Hey, John, I've got a question on this PUD, and one that's starting to become synonymous to me with PUDs. I know that's up on the side of Lookout Mountain,
Yes.
and I know we've got some steep slopes and
Yep.
yada, yada. It, it appears to me now that every time a developer gets a PUD, he just goes in and clear cuts it
Mm-hmm.
and then starts over with the trees. Do you know if that's the plan here? And I probably should have asked this last week, but what's the plan here? I'd
That
hate to
is
drive
not-
by there and see a big bare piece of property up there.
Here's
and
what
say,
I would suggest, maybe to clear it for the record, is we could add a condition of that for the designated open space areas, there'd be no clearing of trees or masquerading. Maybe that'd be something to add for the record as part of the condition for that request. So that's something we could add to be clear that that dedicated open space is not, and I'm sure that, again, the Lookout Conservancy, that's not in their interest.
Well,
but-
I wouldn't think so, but I'm
I
just
hear
to the
you.
point, just don't trust developers anymore.
Okay. Well, I'm not, I won't say anything else. I'll let you. I hear you.
Okay,
Wow.
yeah,
Stepping out there.
I got way out there, didn't I?
Yes. Councilman Oglesby.
John, so for the benefit, for the basis of tonight, we're just going to add that the tree part be added in as a condition.
Yeah, I think so. We can, and we did that before. I remember we had a case up off Cassandra Smith Road in Councilman Smith's district. We had some clarifications for that open space, that it would be no clearing, and we can do something very similar for this. I'll have it ready for you.
Ready? All right, now we're going to go to L, M, and N, but I believe those were gone over in committee last week, weren't they? All right, great. In that case, we're going to move to a departmental report from Youth and Family Development. Coach.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the council. We have a presentation to present to you at this time to give you a brief update of some highlights in the Department of Youth and Family Development. And there's many things that we do impacting the city, the youth and family in the city. But we want to give each division the opportunity to give us some brief highlights for it's on. Okay. To give you the a brief highlight of each division, and each one of our division heads will come and present. We have 6 divisions, and there's a lot of great things that are going, and I want to thank all of you all who have supported the opportunities that we present to youth and family, particular our chairwoman, Councilwoman Coonrod, in supporting our efforts and meeting and keeping up with what we're doing to communicate to the council and others that's concerned about our department. So thank you all for all that you do and how you provide the budget resources for us to continue to impact the city through all of our services. So we got a great team. This team has all types of talent that they bring to the table to help us create, do great programming, and even think of what we need to be doing in terms of future. And you know them, most of you, and we're going to have them to come one by one. Each one of them have 3 to 5 minutes to present their highlights. And then at the end, we'll have an update on our capital projects, and we'll entertain any questions or concerns that you may have relating to youth and family development. So to kick us off, we have Ariel Ford, who will lead us in our early learning highlights. And Ariel, will you come?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us. And I am so grateful to get to go first. It's one of the best parts of having early learning and getting to talk about babies and families, is you oftentimes get to go first, since it's the first stage in lifetime development. So I just wanted to give you some data points showing some of the work that's happening in early learning right now, and to give you an overview of the work that we'll be doing moving forward. So as many of you know, we had a strategic planning session that happened in the fall and early winter. It was a widespread community-based effort, engaging everyone from service providers to families to our council chair, our division chair, and we got a lot of great information and had a lot of great conversations. And out of that came three main points that the community felt were important for early learning systems building in Chattanooga. And the first is that we develop a system that really works for families and children. So the Office of Early Learning is not intended to work for government, but we are a system that is built so that families and children are receiving high quality services and able to live their best lives in our city. Secondly, the group really felt like in order for that to be possible, we have to have an infrastructure that supports that system. So a system is great, but if you don't have teachers who can teach in classrooms and you don't have childcare programs that are available and high quality, it doesn't actually work. So we need to build an infrastructure to deliver that system. And thirdly, they thought that we really need to make sure that we are communicating the importance of our early learning work widely, developing champions like all of you here on council, and making sure that everyone is aware that the period between birth and age 5 when they go to kindergarten is one of the most intense periods of development, one of the most precious resources that we have to build a strong city and a strong community and a strong citizenship. So those were the 3 high-level goals that we came up with, and there will be more coming out about that later. What I wanted to show you next are some data points around Head Start, Early Head Start, and the Early Head Start Child Care Partnerships. So we hold 2 grants, Head Start and Early Head Start, and then most recently we were awarded the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership, which works to increase infant and toddler child care slots in community-based child care programming. Across those 2 grants, we serve 998 children, and it's about a $15 million investment, and it's almost exclusively federal dollars. So that's a lot of children being served and a lot of money coming into our community. What I want you to focus on is the language component, and so this is the 2014-2015 school year. So if you look at language, we see kids are coming into our program with about 53% proficiency, and that's based on age. So depending on the age that they come in, they're at about 53% proficiency for language. They were exiting our program at about 69% proficiency in the 2015, at the end of the 2015 year. So it's about a 16% growth, which is great. We want to see kids having growth and development. It means that they are, that the program is working, that teachers are making progress with kids. They're developing, they're getting the resources they need to catch up to their other peers. But what I really want to show with this is what happened last year. So the 2016-2017 school year, if you look at language, it's a little squished, I don't know why. You see that kids are coming in again at about 53%. So we see at the community level, kids are still coming in about 50% behind where you might expect them to be for their age. But what we have seen in our program is that our teachers are actually getting better at their craft. So instead of the 69% proficiency at the end of the year, they're now at 78% proficiency. So we've gone from a 16% increase in proficiency to 25%. What does that mean? It means that kids are more prepared for kindergarten. It means that we are making good use of our data and our resources and our training in Head Start, and we are using a continuous quality improvement model to make sure that our Head Start is as successful as we can be for the children that we serve. So we have always been high quality. We continue to become even more high quality, and that's what we want to see across the city for all of our child care programs. The other thing I want to highlight today, and I apologize that Head Start got on all of them, that was an editing mistake on my part, is Baby University. And this is something that's gotten a lot of really great attention. We know they do wonderful work. They're in the 2nd year of their external evaluation by UT Schwartz, which is their external evaluator. And you should have a flyer with you that shows all of the data points, but some things that I wanted to highlight for you are that we're seeing families becoming more stable. So an almost 40% increase in the stability of the families in Baby University. Now, these are our most at-risk families. They are families in shelters. They're families facing deportation. They're teen moms. So we're not going to expect that 100% in 2 years would become self-sufficient, but 40% in 2 years is pretty miraculous. So they're doing great work. We're also seeing 100% of our moms and our high school moms are on track for graduation. That's amazing. So Baby University is keeping these mamas in high school. It's engaging them with their families, it's engaging them with their schoolwork, and it's giving them a pathway to a better life for them and their children. We've also seen that there's no infant mortality in the Baby U population. So the target populations, the target zip codes for Baby U in Hamilton County have about a 10% infant mortality rate. 1 out of every 10 babies born in those zip codes dies before the age of 12 months. We are having none of that in Baby University. We're totally reversing that trend in this program. So yeah, so this is important work. This is not it's not babysitting. It's not something sweet that we do to take care of our little ones. It's really important work that's saving the lives of our youngest and most vulnerable children. So those are some of the data points, and it's exciting to be a part of the work of early learning in Chattanooga. There's a huge community effort around children 0 to 5 through Chattanooga 2.0, and I get to be a great part of that and partner with them and alongside them. So I'm really, really proud that Chattanooga is investing in our young children and in the Office of Early Learning to serve in that capacity. Up next, we're going to transition to Jason McKinney to continue in the education trajectory and share some about the education division.
All right, thank you. So not being in the school business, but being as a major player, major partner with the schools, the education and literacy is a major part of our programs that we do within our YFD centers and even throughout the communities. One of the main things we wanted to do when we started the education division was to focus on how we can improve the literacy rate of our students. Currently, the third grade literacy rate is 48%. So only 48% of all of the students in Hamilton County are reading on grade level. And focusing on the students that come to our centers, we're probably around 80 to 90% are below grade level that come to our centers. So focusing on literacy is a major program. We do it through a partnership with Hamilton County. They have Reading Eggs and Reading Plus, which is a reading program. But then we also have provided Lexia for about 5 years, and that is ingrained and strong in our centers. And we have currently using 700 licenses and really focusing on the kids that are up to 5th grade, but we also go above 5th grade and just trying to push that needle. We do a lot of work throughout the school year, but are primarily trying to stop the summer slide and focusing on summertime, spring break, fall break, winter break, times when the students usually will regress. We're keeping them engaged, reading books, reading doing reading programs, and just staying on track. We also have really pushed doing bringing more STEAM programs, and STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and we're bringing more of those programs, implementing them into our centers, so that way the kids are becoming more well-rounded, getting exposed to different types of career paths and different types of careers that they might be interested in those fields. Over the summertime, there was a trend for a long time that you take an urban school to the jails and you take a rich school to a college. You say, this is where you're going to end up. We want to reverse that trend, and so every one of our students that come to our summer camps goes through freshman orientation at UTC. So they'll go through and they'll spend a whole day and they'll go through the exact same steps that a freshman would that coming on campus. So all of our campers this year will go through that freshman orientation. They'll get to experience it, and they get a vision what it's going to be like for them when they get to go and they're actually a participant in college. So it's reprogramming and making sure that everybody sees themselves as a college student. Another program that we do, we really focus a lot on the seniors at the high schools. So we work on FAFSA programs to make sure that we bring in the experts so that the application process and the scholarship process, those things are not missed, and people don't go to college generally because they didn't know how to fill out a program. So we're constantly trying to find roadblocks and address those roadblocks in education. And then another program that we do that really focuses heavily on education, the foster grandparents. Angela Hayes is the director. wasn't able to be here. She's doing a training today. So what foster grandparents are, they're anybody that's over 55 that meets the qualifications, and they go into usually early childhood situations, sometimes first and second graders, and they do one-on-one intervention for mentoring and tutoring of those students. Currently, we have 96 foster grandparents that are serving in 27 nonprofit institutions, and it just adds the supporting measures of working with youth and making sure that they can get this one-on-one, this connection, and that somebody's there for them. This area, and there's just all kinds of statistics that show that this has been a great program. We've been doing it for several years. It's like it's on its 50th year. And now I want to introduce Rachel Howard, and she is the. Yep.
Wait, we've got
Go
a
ahead.
question. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you. Jason, you might want to go back a couple of slides to the summer program.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day. We have all these kids. Usually every year our summer camp is full. And it's a lot of recreation activities. I get that. In going through the library the other day and seeing all the space, the possibilities that they have up there, what's the thought of having a summer camp there and teaching more of technical training, maybe some, like we used to do at Kirkman, teaching some of those skills and sort of starting to whet their appetite a little bit. You made a statement so that everybody sees themselves as a college student. Obviously, I get that, and that's important. We know for a fact all of them are not going to be college students, so they've got to imagine themselves with the possibility that they're equipped with. And it may be a job. It may be a good-paying job. Is there a way to reach out and create a program that we could have a summer camp at the library and start teaching some trades or some skills or some technical ability that maybe we're overlooking right now?
Yes, and so we are currently talking with Shrita Allen in ECD and talking about how they're bringing in businesses and what specific businesses that will come to Chattanooga, and then bringing that down to our centers and saying, okay, how can we start that training and that thought earlier? So those are discussions that we're currently having to, talking about that STEAM training and all that. Those are all things coming in. As far as us doing a program at the library, we wouldn't have the staff to go to the library to do the training, but hopefully we can kind of influence them to provide more of a summer camp that provides that. But if we're talking about what can we do at our centers, we're definitely looking at transitioning and moving to where we're doing more technology types trainings, like exactly what we're talking about. So we are moving that way. Just
well, I
wouldn't be at
understand
the
the
library.
technology, but vocational as well. Are we able to do any vocational training at our centers?
The only vocational training, we did a program where it's a manufacturing and excellence program, but it's more for adults. We haven't done any type of vocational like what you're talking about that they would do at a school, mainly due to expense and expertise of our staff at that point in time.
Well,
So
we got vans, right?
yeah.
The other thing, and I'm just going to ask because I really don't understand this. I know we're still teaching Lexia, and I noticed you said we've partnered with Hamilton County Department of Education, which is great. We're using Lexia. It's my understanding they do not teach Lexia in the school system. Why don't we partner with them and teach what they're teaching in our centers?
Because I think a lot of people just are not very, don't know how they rolled it out. One, reading eggs is only for 5th grade and under, and they've only rolled that out to a few elementary schools. It doesn't go to everybody. And I know whenever I've reached out to the reading eggs to get training for our staff, they just won't. They said, no, we're just only going to work with the Hamilton County. We're not going to allow any type of training. We're not going to provide any training. So some of that is just working with other organizations to try to get that training there.
So we're using reading eggs, or we're not using reading eggs?
If a student comes in and says, hey, we have it, we allow them to get on the computer and we work with them, but we can't get access to any type of reports or results or anything. Only thing we can see is over their shoulder.
So there's a lack of communication.
Black communication or access, yes. And then the Reading Plus is just for, again, it's just for the middle school students. And so what we're keeping Lexia for is for filling in all the gaps of the students that don't meet all those needs. We've got students that are, most of our middle school students that don't have reading aids, they don't have the ability to read on the level that Reading Plus is. So there's nothing for them because they can't read on the level that they need for Reading Plus, and they don't have an account for reading aids. So we're keeping Lexia until we can get those gaps filled.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilperson Coonrod, is your question for Jason? Okay.
Thank you. I actually was under the impression that we was waiting until the whole presentation was over. But
Well, Councilman Henderson messed all that.
I also had a few questions for Area. But Jason, the STEM activities that you all are gonna have throughout all recreation centers, are we doing that now, or that's something that's up and coming?
No, we do it, but it's just not, we do kind of selective sites just because of the cost a lot of times. So if we're doing like a music program down in South Chat, we'll have, we're doing like we're bringing in different art programs. We use Art 120 that comes in and does different programs at different of our sites, but it's just kind of it's not widespread like we'd like to get it to.
Right, okay, so what's the determining factor to determine which sites get certain programs or to get the STEM programs?
We leave it up to the facility managers usually to ask for it because we bring in and say this is coming out. The facility managers will say we have room for this or we don't have room for this. We can have this capacity, and that's usually how it goes. We try to break the YFD into zones. So we have 4 different zones. So when we do something, we try to make sure we can at least provide 4 sites. So that way, each one of our zones gets that, gets that service. One thing we're really trying to do is like either do it to 18 locations or none, and that just wasn't getting enough services out to our public. So breaking it down to 4 zones, doing it 4 locations, it seems that way has gotten it out more, but it's just not, we just can't do everything at every site. It just costs, we just can't do it. So we're trying to at least get something done at most of our sites.
And do you know how many children that we service that actually use the Lexia when they come to the recreation center?
We have all of our 700 licenses are being used now. Whether or not they're using it specifically at our center or whether or not they're using it at home, but all of them are currently being used right now. So, and most of those are at our centers. So we have over 500 that are using them, or 500, 700.
So the desktop computers, is that the only way that they have to access this program, or can they use their laptop, their individual phones? Or
No, it's a web-based
iPad?
program, so it's iPad, it's phones, it's computers, it's laptops, it's anything. They can use it at home, they can use it at school, they can use it at our centers.
Okay, and since we've now transitioned to youth and family development centers, do we have anything in place that will help adults learn how to read? We have a lot of people in the community that don't know how to read, and we're talking about kids. So are adults able to use this same program, or are there other programs in place that's gonna help?
Yeah, we have several adults that are using the Lexia program. It's only up to 5th grade, so it works. But we have several adults that are, illiterate, and they have either a kindergarten, 1st grade reading level, and they access this program, and they've been very positive about how much it's helped them.
And then one last question for you, but when I think about the Southside Recreation Center, so students come from all backgrounds there, and they have a lot of support from the community. So compare the Southside Recreation Center to, let's say, Carver Center and the use of the Lexia. Do you see that it's an increase with better grades or scoring coming from the Southside Rec due to the support that they have from the communities and parental support involvement than perhaps at another recreation location?
The parental support directly impacts their education overall. So the areas that we have a higher parental support, you're going to have higher grades and higher increases. So no matter what type of area you're talking about, whether it be Lexia or anything else, the higher the parental support, the better off the students are going to do. So I don't want to say like, oh, well, since they have better parental support, the Lexia is improving more, because that's not, I can't really say that that's the reason. I think Lexia has improved everywhere, and that the students that are on Lexia that use it with fidelity, we do see drastic gains, and we see them staying consistent, not having those backslides, especially over the summertime. So they're consistently reading, and it's not necessarily whether it's Lexia or it's a book or it's another reading program. It's getting the kids consistently reading on a daily basis, and they have something that they come do, something that they access. And so that's what we're seeing the gains on, and we're using Lexia as a model. But if we replace Lexia with something else, we would see the same gains if we had that consistency on literacy.
Okay, so are you comparing the gains with your program or with the data from the Hamilton County Department of Education? So how can
We're looking at both. So we're looking at those that we come in that we have using Lexia with fidelity, that the data showing that they have improved, and then we look at their gains, and if we can get, when we have access to their gains, and they're showing the similar gains in the Power School and also with their test results. So we kind of go and try to compare and say, is what we're seeing here the same thing? And usually it does.
Thank you. But can I ask my questions to Ariel?
Yeah, we'll come back. Let me do this first. Councilperson Burrs, is your question for Jason? Let's finish up with Jason first.
Jason, you all are doing a great job. Thank you very much. It's coming up to budget time, and so these are questions that I guess I need some more insight into. We've had a lot of talk, no matter whether you're talking about kids in trouble or kids that are not at par with other kids, and we keep saying, well, the city's out of the school business. However, these are our kids, and we're using the centers to buffer what the kids aren't getting in school for whatever reason. So, and being with 2.0 and working with all of that, I guess I'm picking up on what Councilwoman was saying. Is the issue funding, lack of funding, so that all centers aren't equal?
Yeah, and that's usually, when we're talking about STEM programming, they're usually very expensive types of programs. So we're talking about funding. If we're trying to stretch every dollar we have, we're trying to look at the different costs. And so if you're wanting to bring in an expert at a certain program, it's just no way we can do it at 16, 18 sites. So we try to just look at, okay, how can we get in 4 strategic locations, so that way all community, we can bus the kids there, or the communities can transport there. So yeah.
So are we in fact busing the kids there?
Yes, we've bused kids a lot of different locations, and we move kids all over the city to different programs and different organizations and different groups that we're doing.
It's the quote magnet school idea. I hear you. I think what you're doing is great. What I'm trying to figure out is how we can have equity here and how we can get the kids or their parents to let them go, or what do we need for equity so that there aren't kids left behind? Is this just a matter of money?
I mean, money, yeah. I mean, really, it is. It is. And then we provide it in more locations, more, we bring in more resources, and we provide it everywhere across the city. So, yes.
Okay, so we're saying that we're supplementing what the public schools haven't been doing so well, particularly for kids at risk, and yet we're not also willing to spend the money for it that you think is necessary. I know
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, but I mean, yeah. Yes. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And let me ask you this. Do we have internet at all the centers?
Yes.
So there's internet connections in all the centers?
Correct.
All right. What about the age of our computers in the centers?
They are, we had, in order to get the, everything started, we asked for a lot of donated computers. So we have a lot of computers that have been donated, a lot of computers that now after they're 5 years old. So Our
I asked that poorly.
Yes.
Are our computers sufficient to the task at the centers?
no.
Okay. You said that Lexia goes to a 5th grade level?
Yes.
And if you talk to people that write newspapers, et cetera, I'm not sure what the level it's written to, but we could get people, well, I am sure, 5th grade isn't far off. Can we get adults, at least in our centers, to 5th grade reading?
Yes, we could.
What are we missing to do that?
A lot of it's just the participation and getting in. It takes a long time commitment, and it's you've got to. When you're talking about adult that's very low in reading, you're talking about somebody that's had very little success for year after year after year. They went through high school year after year and very little success. So, getting commitment and success early and often, but it's still a long-term commitment. And I think that when talking about adults in that situation, they're getting pulled all kinds of other different directions as well. So I think that's your biggest obstacle is finding the adults that want to do it, but also will be able to stick with it long enough in a area that they've had very little success in.
Okay, one last question, Mr. Chair. What are we doing to work with the unions, the building trades, IBEW, those who now have programs where they can work with kids? Is it that we don't have the facility space? Why are we not marrying our need with what they have to offer in mentoring?
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the space and whether or not, like, we have the equipment that they're needing. So I think that's what we're lacking is getting the equipment and those things that they need at our centers.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in dialogue with some churches.
Good.
Our capacity is limited in many of our centers for some of the things that are being addressed. And that's why we're trying to do the expansions and the new centers that is going on. The table is bigger and have more space. But these churches, the space in some of these churches that I've been meeting with some of the pastors, they have more capacity. And churches are not being used except for Sundays and Wednesdays for the most part. And we're trying to get them to collaborate and partner with us for the very reason of thinking about how do we elevate the vocational programs in the city of Chattanooga for
great,
the inner city children. So we're really working hard to create some of that. And I think within the next year or so that we'll probably have some pilot programs going forward.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Byrd, is your question for Jason?
Yes, and it could have been answered, I'm not sure, but just to get some clarity for me, sir. And thanks for everything that you do, Jason. I really appreciate the work you're doing. Is there any extra efforts focused on the centers near our I-Zone schools, saying where we have extra teachers there or extra hands-on in these different facilities where it has been reported that, in these schools, our kids are failing or, not meeting the status quo. So is there anything around our centers in those areas extra focused toward that to help with the community?
So from our staff going there, from them coming, which way are you looking at?
It's kind of a part of a two-part question because I think I was asking, like, if it is extra efforts or extra things there to help out with these communities, then what are we doing to allow the community to know that, hey, these extra efforts or these resources are here at this facility, come on down, or come be a part of this, where we're being, in a sense, aggressive? Is there anything there to say, like, hey, this is here, you guys need to come down here and accept or get a part of this program or things that are going on? Okay.
We have worked diligently with the leadership of the county schools, to make ourselves known that we want to be good neighbors and good partners. And Jason has done an excellent job softening the blow. And if you all can do anything to help them understand, we are here to partner with them. And we don't need credit or anything. Those facilities are available. Our staff, we have geared them up to be available to go in the schools and to partner with the teachers to get those most at-risk students in our centers, to give them the additional support. But let's be very clear, we have not been received very well. And our new superintendent, I've met with him on a couple occasions, and he's very open, and I think we're moving in that direction. But for the last several years, we have not got the type of support and the welcoming to take advantage of the city resources to help the children in the schools. And we can't dodge that bullet. So whatever political influence you have to help those understand, we are here to serve these children. And a lot of it seemed to be who gets credit or whatever the case is that I don't understand, but all of our staff stays ready and open to sit down, even with the citywide strategy that's going on with 2.0. We're invited to the table, and it's just now seeming to be recognizing that we bring a lot to the equation, and we need to really work closer together. And I think the political climate, you all can help us with that. We're very open to it.
Right. Thank you.
I do want to give one example of we're working with. We do a lot of better work working with the principals than working with the central office a lot of times. And like East Lake is a great example of when a student gets suspended, they get suspended and they get the absences. Not only are they getting out of school, but they're not getting the education and learning in that. So with at East Lake, what we're doing is they have a group of kids that when they get suspended, they actually come to our center throughout the school day. And so during the school day, they're coming to our center to get education. So they're not getting suspended away from school. They're actually getting suspended out of the environment that they're getting in trouble in, but they also still getting their education. So we're doing those type of collaborations with several schools. Working with the new formed opportunity zone is that's pretty much all of our centers. And so doing those types of collaborations is where we're going to see our most success.
Councilman Gilbert, is your question for Jason? Okay.
All right, Jason. I think one of the schools, I think it's Brandon also, that we work with closely when it for suspension purposes.
Yes, correct.
And I appreciate that. I noticed that Councilman Byrd and I think Councilwoman Byrd mentioned about services, and a lot of times it's about having the equipment to do the job. Like last budget, did we budget for computers last year that you know of?
Our computers, we've gone through the IT process, and they're going through and doing the renovations, and that's part of it. Is part of the that process. So I have to defer that to the IT department.
So IT at the moment is supposed to be renovating or changing your current computers to run more efficient, correct?
Correct.
I know that we have a fleet program and it's dealing with cars. Why can't we start looking at similar something like for the computer program? In other words, you might not can cover every center with every new computer, but if we could start doing things like the fleet program, do so many at a time, and then we would reach all the centers, we start all over again with new technology and new computers. So that might be opportunity there. Here come the lady can say yes.
I heard it.
Thank you, Councilman. We do have a technology fund, and that's similar to the fleet fund. That is the intent of that fund to be a reserve of money that does allow us to do that type of replacement for computers. It's not fully funded, so it does not do the work that we would like it to do, but it is that we do have a fund set up like that.
Just another question, since you mentioned that for funding. Workforce development, to me, is similar to this in a sense. And I know we have $6 million sitting around because of the Ostrom money. maybe start looking at that and start looking at giving us the technology to give to the centers and to have opportunity there. Because like what Chip was saying, for us trade schools, it's needed. We don't have anything basically for trade. Pretty soon there will be nobody to build, to lay bricks or to do electrician because it's fading out. So we need to start looking into the opportunity to work with either the unions or work with school to see how can we do as partners. Like Coach said, he's now getting a positive situation with the school system, which is great. We need that because all these kids are our kids. It's not just Hamilton County kids, they're all our kids. And whatever we can do to work together, it could be a positive thing. So I'm glad Coach got that positive thing going with the new superintendent. But at the same time, I think we need to get some resources to them to start looking at, can't do it all at once, but maybe gradually.
Love those ideas.
Thank you.
Sir.
Okay, that was the last question. Wait a minute, hold on here. Councilman Henderson.
Coach, we might as well take this thing all the way down the road.
Yes, sir.
I know the school board and the county commission get together and meet quite often. If we were able to arrange a meeting between the school board and city council, is that something that you could help facilitate? And I was at a meeting the other day with the superintendent and was thinking, we have a lot of resources at the city.
Yeah.
To help them do what he was standing up there telling everybody they wanted to do. And
Yes.
it doesn't seem like the resources are really getting to the source.
Yes, sir.
If we could have a joint meeting, is that something that you could help maybe pull together some presentations of things
Yes,
that we
sir.
could help with and try to open up a dialogue with them so that, we should play a support role. They
Absolutely.
are obviously in the driver's seat, but we can play a big support role.
Yes, sir. I think that's a great idea. They need to at least be aware of all the many great things that we are capable of doing and the things that we are doing. So in the planning of this whole making Chattanooga the smartest city in the South with the 2.0 strategies, that we should be playing a role in the planning and on them understanding how we fit. Because if the out of school time strategies merge with the school time strategy, we can accomplish that. And we can align what we're doing with what they're doing. And that's all we want, to be on the same page for all of the students. Even the lowest child is struggling, still have an opportunity to elevate with all the wraparound services that we provide. So if you could orchestrate something like that, I would be glad to bring our team to the table and discuss how we play a good supporting role to the overall strategy to move Chattanooga forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilperson Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. But I got a question for Coach, but then I also want to ask my question for Ariel.
Okay.
I'm through with you. But Coach, you know what? We got to be honest here. All that sounds great, and we're talking about the youth. We're talking about families. We're empowering families, and we need funding. We need a lot of funding because the upkeep, the infrastructure of a lot of these recreation centers, they're not empowering. They're not inviting. I mean, we say we want to help kids get to the next level. We want this to be the best educational opportunity. We want to do what we can to make sure we're playing our part as a city of Chattanooga. But when you pull up at that recreation site, people, it's ugly. It's atrocious. What are we doing to make sure that we're outside of putting institutionalized paint in the inside to look like a jail or a hospital? What are we doing to make these centers inviting? What about the outsides? What are we doing to make families want to appreciate or take advantage of opportunities or programming, per se, that we have to offer for the community to improve their lives?
Well, first, I would say let's recognize the good work that's going in first. Let's celebrate, recognize the things that we're doing well. Then identify those things we need to do better. And if that's one of those things we need to do better, that comes on the list of those things moving forward. And those things that we're not doing at all, we look at capacity. Because one of the things I keep bringing up is with this citywide strategy for Chattanooga, the centers, and I just don't focus on our centers. There are churches with gymnasiums, and we have two partnerships with churches that has facilities that we need to continue to dialogue and provide resources, staffing, and programming for those facilities to be used, because there's only so much that the budget that we have, we can do what we're talking about doing. But I think with an overall plan, not just picking and choosing what we're not doing well, but I think we need to recognize what we're doing well and look at what we need to do better, and then what we're not doing at all, seeing if we have the capacity to do it. If we don't have the capacity to do it, then we need to recruit partners that's willing to help us move these things forward, whether it's corporate, whether it's churches, or whoever, because we can't do it all. We can do a lot of things, but we can't do everything, and there's going to be always something that people will have to complain about that we're not, and it just may be a matter of capacity in terms of how far our resources can go.
I agree with you there. I mean, I think we have excellent programs, but don't really know the outcome if it's really working or not, because all we see is presentations and those kind of things that give us the data, what sometimes can be screwed to say what we wanted to say. But I wish that, you know, the communities, the school system, whomever partners that we're going to get, that it will be more successful, or people will take advantage of the opportunities. Maybe it's the way that we're getting the information out. But I would love to see some kind of improvements in those recreation centers.
We're working at it, Councilwoman. We're working at it. We feel your pain. We feel the pain ourselves. And I think we've come a long way, and we got some ways to go, and we're going to get there ultimately. But it takes the whole city to play a role in stepping up. And I know that we have some churches that want to play a role in their resources, and we're talking and dialoguing about how do we get other resources to partner with what we're already doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You want to ask Ariel your question?
Yes, I got a couple of questions. Hi, Ariel.
Good afternoon.
So with the early childhood, your department.
Yes.
So when you all are planning for community members and parents, were they a part of the process?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And how are we, I noticed you said that you engage the community. How are we bringing awareness to the community in hopes of building a solid early learning structure?
So can you say that again? How are we, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
With your department, how are you bringing awareness to the community in hopes of building a solid early learning structure?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of what I have, so I've been working really faithfully with Chattanooga 2.0 and engaging in that work really a whole lot. And so that's really a coalition-led initiative. So Early Matters has rebranded itself as a standalone portion of Chattanooga 2.0, and the City of Chattanooga's Office of Early Learning is a really integral part of that work. So we're always really available and engaged in that. And then the other piece is that part of this is about timing. So when so we're putting forward the budget for FY 2019 now, and so it's I don't want to overpromise things that we won't be able to deliver. So it's definitely being in the community, speaking at events, volunteering at events, being a part of work that's ongoing, and then kind of trying to align with the other pieces of work in early learning that are happening across the community. So something I think about a lot is what's the right role for city government in early learning? And I think a lot of that is not necessarily being the most prominent part at the table, but how are we underlying this work so that we're creating a strong infrastructure for the work that has to happen across all of our public and private partnerships? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
And then my last question is this, is that I know when it comes to early learning, the facilities that I've had the opportunity to visit, and pretty much all of them, the kids that are there are African American or lower income individuals, parents send their kids there. So my question is this, and I don't want you to get offended by it because I know how people take things, but I would like to know, like once the committee was formulated, were there anybody with different perspectives on this board, to discuss, or the committee that was developed to discuss the different developmental stages, or, was the committee put together with a diverse group of folk and the deciding factors when we're talking about people of color, the early stages of learning for people of color?
Yeah, so equity is one of the cornerstones of the work that I do. So equity, diversity, and inclusion are the three things that I am really consistently talking about with the Office of Early Learning. So those three components are considered in any work, including the committee. So it was a diverse group of stakeholders. Could it have been more diverse? I think it could always be more diverse, and that's something that I want to look at moving forward. And so this is kind of future visioning, is really thinking about how we bring diversity and leadership to early learning. Not just Chattanooga, it's a national problem that we do not raise up leaders who are diverse. And so that's something that I hope we can work on in the next couple of years together. And I've actually talked with Wade about that some, is how do we start to engage in that work of bringing about diversity in our leadership teams around early learning. So I think that's certainly not offensive. I think it's really important that we have those hard conversations and be honest about where our shortcomings are and how we're bringing an equity lens to the work.
And then one last thing,
Yeah.
Chattanooga 2.0, they've been around now for a couple of years. And when they first come out, they said to Chattanooga that our students are simply not ready for the workforce. They're not ready for college. They're not even ready for life.
Right.
Years in every publication they've put out, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So now it's 3 years or so later. Does the data still reflect where we were at the beginning, or
Yeah.
have things changed?
Yeah, so the thing about this kind of a population level change is that it really does take a generation to show the difference. And that's what we see in early childhood, is that when you invest in an infant or toddler or preschooler, the gains really show up about 25 to 40 years later. So you might see some swells and dips in their education along the way, but where you see the long-term outcome is really in their educational attainment long-term, that they put off their first birth until after high school or later, that they are less likely to be incarcerated, that they're more likely to have a job long-term, that their wages are higher than their peers. So the work that we're trying to do, it's really frustrating when we see these families that are in crisis, and we want it to change yesterday, and it needs to change yesterday. But these are really, really complex systemic problems that we're trying to change. And so some of the work will show up in 10, 15 years. So there have been changes that there are programmatic shifts. So we're seeing some of the immediate outcomes that we're seeing. So the Early Matters group, and I can't really speak to the other groups just because I'm not as intimately involved in the K-12 work or the post-secondary work as I am in the early childhood. So what we're seeing is hospital visitation. So this is a zero-cost program that was come up with between, at Early Matters, Baby University developed a training for hospital volunteers to go in and work with new mamas who have just had their baby, and to get them signed up for Dolly Parton Books from Birth, and to get them signed up for Ready for K, which is an evidence-based texting program. So we're starting to see that there's an uptick in parents who are having that volunteer coming in, and that those families are signing up for the books and the texting. So right now there's no outcome data around that because we just don't have enough time that we've seen that in place. But what we do have is output data that we're starting to see. Families are accepting this. They're starting to say, oh, okay, yes, I want to have that person come in and sign up for these services. So that's what we would expect in an evaluation plan at this point. I can also say with Chattanooga 2.0 that in Early Matters, one of the things that the funding committee has funded is an external evaluation, so that we know that the money that we're spending and the work that we're doing is making a difference. And it just doesn't sound good, to your point. It's not just numbers on a piece of paper that may or may not have a relationship to the real work happen, the real people that are in our communities. So I think that really speaks to the commitment of Early Matters to do work that has a long-term impact. But it's not an easy answer, and I wish it was. Yeah.
All right, thank you, I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you for the chance to speak to those problems.
Thank you. Council, we've been going an hour now, and we have two other committee meetings, and this is a departmental report, not a discussion on public education or any of that type of stuff, even though it's been very informative to me personally, and I thank you for it. But we need to move on, and let's try to be aware of our time. Well, you're one of the ones that took us down the road. Remember all the way down the road?
Wrap it up. Okay. For the
No, I
sake-
mean, we're fine. Halfway through?
We'll condense each division going forward. We'll just give you a minute or so to wrap it up. And then I know there was some
Yeah, we
concerns
maybe
about-
need to see you a little more often. What's the council's pleasure? Okay, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't I wasn't commenting on your presentation. I was commenting on our handling of our time.
Well, just condense it.
There's no guarantee
Good
we'll handle our
afternoon.
time any better.
I am Rachel Howard. I'm the director of the Office of Family Empowerment, and y'all have to bear with me. I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to try to make sure you can hear me, but if you can't, let me know. So in the Office of Family Empowerment, our goal every day is to change lives. We're here to help the families in Chattanooga live their best life. We have several different programs that we use to help families to meet their goals. It essentially breaks into two tracks. We've got one that's more focused on short-term stability, and we have one that's a more long-term case management and empowerment strategy that helps families to gain stability that is more long-term and more permanent. And that second track is for families who really want more, who want to achieve, and who really want to make a difference in their own lives and in the community that they live in. So overall, our goal is to create meaningful change and transformation in the lives of the families that we serve. This is our Family Empowerment Program model. This is our newest program, and it's going to become our signature program and the kind of the standard by which we will help families in Chattanooga. Through this program, we work with families to achieve their goals for a period of up to 2 years. It's a holistic approach, and we support the entire family through their transition to self-sufficiency. And we do that by working with the children all the way up to the parents and addressing every need that that family has as much as possible across the board and across the spectrum of barriers that they may face. We do that, as you can see, with a broad network of community partners and support. And we do this also to encourage engagement with the community. We want the families that we serve to feel connected to their community, to feel invested in their community, and eventually to reinvest that success and that mindset in their community. Our family support model is unique in that it is three-cornered. It's like a triangle. We have the family at the apex of that triangle, and at the bottom we have the family support specialist, which is also known as a case manager. And then we have our family coach, which is a community volunteer or a mentor that we've recruited, and these people work alongside the family support specialist to help those families achieve their goals. We recently had our first class of family coaches graduate from training. That was last week. We had 20 coaches that got trained and are ready to go, and we're now in the process of matching them with families that they'll be working with along their journey to self-sufficiency. So far this year, this is just for year-to-date for 2018, we've had 63 families in our programs that have achieved self-sufficiency. We've had 103 individuals working with our programs that have achieved employment, and we've made almost 2,000 referrals and connections to our community partners, which is really important because we can't do the work that we do without the broad network of support that we have within the community in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Banks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again so much for allowing us to come and share. I'm Dr. David Banks, the coordinator of career development, and I'm going to be discussing 3 things that we're overseeing in career development. The first one is when I started in 2016, the whole focus was really making sure that people were properly employed. So I had talked to companies, and they were really discussing they wanted good talent. Talking to individuals, they really wanted to work, but unfortunately, they had some barriers. So I created the community workforce ecosystem to really help bridge that gap, to really take people and really take them through training, to make sure that they have life skills as well as employable skills. The whole focus was really developing a workforce initiative to make sure that they are properly trained to be employed, as well as increase retention, as well as also making sure that they're promoted. My whole focus was not just to get them another job, but to really move them into a profession. My goal in 2018 was to train 250 people and also allow 125 to be employed, but we've exceeded that, so over 400 have been trained and 159 have been employed. So our goal each week is to take people through training, and through that, making sure that people are moving into really gainful employment. We also seen that they are having retention, they're staying on the job more. The hours, the pay is between $10 to $12 an hour, and they are really moving forward. Another initiative is called the King's Table. This is an initiative. It's a 10-week, and I'm working with at Howard High School, working with young seniors, young men, really teaching them workforce skills and helping them and getting them prepared for, after they graduate. So that's a very exciting program. Also, these are some success stories. This is Miss Janice Williams. She entered through our training the end of last year, and she applied those principles, and now she is employed at YFD. She is the administrator with Jason and Ariel Ford. This is Mr. Braswell here in the middle. He came through our program. We met him at Eastdale. He came through our bus tour, and he went through our program, and he is doing well, and now he is employed at Tranco, and now he's in management. Also, this is the teen empowerment. This is Joe Hunter and Thomas Battle. They oversee this program, and they are working with at-risk kids from ages 13 to 17. And they meet at these YFD centers on these nights, and it's really character development. Also, we're doing a collaboration with Urban League. Urban League have some kids where they're willing to pay for them to be able to work with Joe Hunter in these centers. So we feel like all of these things are very productive things and really helping people to move forward. Now we're going to turn this to Gary.
2 minutes. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the leadership division. What we measure in terms of performance are the number of trained leaders, of those who enter our programs, the number of program completers, and the number of community served. And when we talk about community served, we're talking about those underserved communities. We use 3 youth development initiatives to deliver services. The Chattanooga Ambassador Program, or CAP, you see our young people in the blue shirts at a number of local functions. The My Brothers Keeper Chattanooga initiative came out of the White House under President Obama, asked to improve outcomes for for boys and young men. And the last one is the Youth Opportunity Initiatives, and that is new. For last year, we began to work with disconnected youth in underserved communities. A number of our young people in communities can't come to our center, so we take programs to them. With the Youth Opportunity Initiatives, what we're trying to do is foster new opportunities for those disconnected youth, and we do that by aligning existing resources to attract additional resources. A lot of time partners want to go in communities and serve our young people, but they don't have the wherewithal, and so we take our services and our know-how to those communities. We look at job training, work experience, those things that are listed, but ultimately what we'd like to do is come up with a sustainability strategy. Once we've gone in and developed programs in those underserved communities, we'd like for them to be able to function on their own at some point in the near future. The second program, the Chattanooga Ambassador Program, it is a leadership and character building initiative. We started in 2013. We're now serving Generation 5. We can't believe that we've made it that far. We've worked with 170 students with intense training up to this point. We stay with them for about a year, and we have a 98% success rate of young people either entering college or going into the workforce. In January, we graduated 26 of our 30 students, and in February, we signed a new class, Generation 5, just last month. And the last one, the My Brother's Keeper initiative, again, President Obama asked to explore ways to improve outcomes for Chattanooga, for boys and young men, particularly in our community. Last summer, we served about 100 disconnected youth. Those were 12, youth 12 and under. Our goal was to reduce summer learning losses. A lot of those children didn't have places to go, museums, libraries. They couldn't get to places where they could continue their education across the summer. So we took those programs to them. The My Brother's Keeper Conference, last year we worked with about 75 students, and we were focused on decision making. There was a lot going on the streets, and we wanted our boys to begin making better decisions, so we had workshops on how to make better decisions. This year we're going to focus on public policy. A lot of times our young men don't have a voice, and they don't know that they can impact public policy, so this year we're going to help them understand how that works. And then the last is, for this summer, we're going to really focus on job training and job placement in those communities and college preparation. So that's the leadership. I'm going to turn it over to Greta Hayes, Recreation.
Good afternoon. For the sake of time, I'm going to be very brief. I will let you know that if you've got questions or need more detailed information about programs, I brought a lot of information with me, so we can move right through this. Okay, so quickly, I'm just going to go over, as you know, Recreation is a very large division of youth and family development. We've got a lot of facilities, and we've got a lot of programming units within this division. And I'm just quickly going to highlight some of the things that we've got going on. Over at North River Civic Center, we host a ton of community meetings, organizational meetings. We provide activities on a daily basis. And one of the highlights we have coming up is a Sunset Concert Series that will be on the third Friday, and you can see up there, and it's free to the public. Heritage House is probably one of the best kept secrets in Chattanooga when it comes to rentals, family events. And as you can see, at the end of last year, we hosted 174 private and public events. At the end of this fiscal year, we will have hosted over 221, and we expect to have over 315 for the upcoming year. So we're very excited about working with Public Works and facilities maintenance. We're making some improvements, but this is just an amazing facility that we're fortunate to have within our department. Eastgate Senior Center, I mean, place is packed nonstop. These are just a few of the activities that we have going on there. And like I said, I will move through this for the sake of time. Our Recreation Food Program, the CACFP is the program that we have year-round that we work in partnership with the YMCA to serve meals at our centers. And we are looking at doing one hot meal beginning next month. So we'll have one meal a week on Wednesday nights that will be a hot meal that will be provided for our young people at the centers. You can see the numbers here, the breakfasts that were served, and then the total suppers that were served. And then the SFSP is our summer food program, and you can see the breakfasts there were 33,172, and the lunches we served were 43,160. So we've got a great partnership going with the state and with the Y as our vendor, and that program's been going very well, and the kids seem to love it. And we're exposing them to different types of healthy food, so it's not always just McDonald's and things that we know aren't good for them. For Champions Club, I just wanted to highlight these are the economic impact numbers, and we use the economic impact formula that the sports committee uses. when they derive what the economic impact is for tournaments and events that they bring in throughout the city. You can see here the numbers are pretty significant. For 2016, 2017, I'd just like to note those were 30 tournaments that we had throughout the season over that accounted for 78 days of play. That does not count leagues and other programs that we have at Champions Club. So Jason mentioned earlier about our summer camp, and Councilman Henderson also alluded to that as well. But we, in addition to everything we do, field trips, utilizing our resources within our city departments, these are a few things that we're adding this summer. Registration will start April 1st, and camp will start on June the 4th, and we'll have the full 8-week session. So we have a classically trained dancer who is a graduate of our Ballet Tennessee program, who is going to be coming back and working with our young people. Learning the Ropes is a double Dutch jump roping group that comes in. We did this over the winter break camp, and it was a big hit with the kids. We're going to be participating in Navy Week. We're doing educational seminars for all the sites through the health department. We are working with Terry Rossell with the fire department, and she's helped us brainstorm and doing a public safety camp to teach our young people more about the police department, fire department, and all those public safety entities that are out there, and expose them to what they do for our communities. And then, as Jason mentioned, like I said earlier, the UTC Summer Enrichment Program, where they'll be doing tours. Our older kids will be doing tours, and some of our younger ones with the Summer Enrichment Program at UTC. This is also the same formula that was used for the Champions Club. I thought these were closer together, but it's okay. Warner Park and Summit, these are the total economic impacts for the weekend tournaments that we host. Pretty much we've had a tournament, I guess, 2 weekends ago, and we start in basically the end of February, 1st of March, and we'll go through Thanksgiving. So when the park is not being utilized on the weekends, with the numbers that we have, sometimes whether it's rain or we just have a break built in for national tournaments, we utilize our RBI programs. We work with College Dale Association, and our parks are booked at both locations 7 days a week, pretty much. Our contributions to the Office of Family Empowerment, we are working with Chief Roddy and the police department to develop strategic programming around surge weeks, and where they see a surge in crime, typically your first week of school, first week of summer, your fall break, winter break, spring break, and then the 2 weeks during June when the TSSAA has the dead period where you can't have practices within the high schools. And so we're working with him to do deliberate programming during those times to give young people an opportunity to stay active and stay involved in positive programming. And the second thing is we'll be doing conflict resolution training by certified agencies for all youth participants at our YFD centers twice a year. And we're also working with the Family Justice Center on providing domestic violence training for our young people as well. And these are just a couple of upcoming staff trainings that we're having. The police department's going to do a training for us tomorrow on the gang activity here and making our staff more aware of what's going on in the areas that they serve. We're going to be doing an active shooter training with the Homeland Security and the SWAT team. And then we have CPR certifications coming up at the end of the month. And he told me to go on to Capitol. So, been working in conjunction, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, and this is just a brief update, but I just want to say thanks to Justin Holland, Mayor Burke, and Mara for all the support with General Facilities with Carrie Bohannon. They've been amazing working with IT, Donna Jeffrey, and Brent to really help get our centers, we hear what you're saying, Councilman Coonrod, where they need to be. They didn't get like this overnight, so it's not easily able to turn around overnight, but we, I think, all have a consolidated partnership and effort to make this happen. So as you can see, over the last 2 fiscal years, we've made capital building enhancements to these facilities that include roofs, HVAC systems, resurfacing tennis courts, gym floors, in addition to security cameras. We've also added playgrounds, pavilions with seating and grills, and all of those that were scheduled for this past fiscal year have been completed. Through our partnership with the Ronald McDonald House, Orange Grove, and the Y, we were able to add the Miracle Field at Warner Park, which was just an amazing enhancement to that facility and makes it really inclusive. So we're very excited to have that there. The new Avondale YFD Center construction has begun, and we're on track for the on-time completion. East Lake YFD Center project has begun its initial phase. The RFQ went out for bid. We had a small community meeting on the 5th, and then we'll have our first community input meeting on the 15th. Councilman Ogilvy's been very helpful assisting us with that. So we're very excited to have that process moving as well. And then we have $200,000 in this year's capital budget for design to determine the next phase for the master plans at Washington Hills. And we are currently working on these enhancements, working with IT to determine, our committee to determine the next locations for security cameras. And these are major upgrades that we've been doing during this administration. We first started at Carver. We've done East Chattanooga. We've recently completed East Dale. But we work with the police department and IT, and we go do a complete and thorough evaluation along with our staff that's on site and determine where they need cameras internally and externally so that we can better serve the needs for the staff and for those agencies that need those cameras. Here is a breakdown of the roofs, and Dennis, if anything's wrong on this, I'll wait for you to throw something at me. But here's the roofs and the YFD Center advertised dates for bid. You can see those. The HVAC location, the advertised date for those bids. The zoo expansion is, I will say this, moving forward slowly, but we're all working in conjunction together, meaning the UTC, the fitness center and the city, of course, and working with all the partners involved to make sure that everybody's needs are met. So as we move through this, that we can keep the public informed and make sure that they have a place to work out and that no one's left out as we move through this. But the wall in the shop area for the zoo will be installed hopefully this week.
Councilman Henderson.
Thank you.
Ho.
Okay.
That was a lot of information to take
I
in
know.
at one
I'm
time.
sorry. I'm trying to.
I'm still trying to process it. Greta, you obviously are familiar. Back in 2015, we had a strategic capital improvement plan for our youth and family development. And I've gone through, I don't know if some of the new council members even know that this plan existed. Do we know if everything that was in the 2015 or budgeted during that 2015 period, have all of those improvements been completed? Or is there a way to get a list or an update of the 2015 strategic plan?
Yes. So Dennis and Carrie and I met last week. We have a monthly capital meeting, and then we also have, in addition to that, a monthly facilities maintenance meeting. Okay. And so all those projects that have been funded up to this point have either been completed or are on that list of advertised dates to be completed.
Okay. So everything that was on that advertised list would finish us up
yes.
for this 2015?
Correct.
And then there were basically evaluations on each rec center. There was also evaluations needed to each rec center. Have those evaluations been done, or is that something that we still need to do?
Actually, we're in the process of doing those now. We started back in October, and what we've done is compiled a group from Carrie with general maintenance. We've got Dennis Malone, Eric Booker from the engineering. We've had who else? Code enforcement. We've had the fire marshal's office, and then we have, from a programming aspect, we have our staff involved, and as well as myself. Okay. And we do 2 to 3 sites a month. And what we do is we just block off almost an entire day, half a day to an entire day, and we go through, and everybody takes their own, area of expertise, and they know everything from ceiling tiles to structural cracks in the wall. And then Carrie Bohannon is working on a spreadsheet where we will compile all that information, because we know so much has changed from projects being completed to new damage that may have surfaced. So we're trying to get a more current inventory of what we need to do so that we can better drive our capital projects.
Will we get a list of that evaluation whenever it's put together?
Yes, absolutely.
And when will
we still have about...
When will that be?
Councilman, I was just going to say that's part of your request is
Yeah.
what we're, I mean, it's good business practice, but it's also in response to your request as well.
Thank you. And as far as the roofs, as far as you know, all of the roofs that were needed to be replaced or have been evaluated, and this would take care of all of the roof needs for all of our YFD centers?
Yes, currently. And what we've tried to look at is, for instance, as Avondale is being renovated, as East Lake, as we get our direction of where we're going to go to the next renovations, we're trying to be very cognizant that we're not wasting city taxpayer dollars on putting in roofs and HVACs, and we know that's going to be on the list. We'll move that down the list, if that makes sense, those dollars. We had looked at East Lake being on the list for security cameras, but we knew the renovation was going to be in the next 1.5 to 2 years. So we made sure to not put a large amount of money in for security cameras there and redirect that somewhere else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilperson Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Greta, one question for you is who determines which recreational sites gets a new recreational center or get expansions?
Well, ultimately, what we do is we gather information based on safety needs, community usage. We derive that from our monthly reports and see what centers are being used. We looked at age of our buildings. So we have an inventory of how old the buildings are. A lot of them are old school buildings. And then we report that to Coach Jennings and Mara and the mayor, and then we get our direction, from them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair.
Yes.
My question to you.
Sorry?
Are we about to conclude this?
I think we're about finished, but you have something else?
Yeah, I wanted to say something.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you all for, coming and answering the questions that we were allowed, given a chance to ask you guys. I know we were really short on time. And thank you, Chair, for giving us that opportunity. But I would like to also just schedule a follow-up committee meeting once a month just to focus on the different areas with youth and family development to give us the opportunity to ask those questions and get answers moving forward.
Yes, Councilwoman, we're at your service, and anytime you'd like to meet with us, we can arrange that based on your convenience, and we're here to serve and meet the needs of the community.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have an announcement to make. We are going to go into the Human Resources Committee meeting next, but we are going to postpone the ECD meeting until hopefully next week, even though we have 2 other committee meetings already next week. He said move past him. Yeah, she said move past him. You want here? You can have it.
We're finna call to order the Human Resource Committee. Can I get the minutes of the last approval of the last minute of the last meeting? Thank you. As Vicky and her team comes up to explain, well, it's going to be she will introduce the person going to speak, discuss the disciplinary appeal process. But before then, we'll have our lawyer to explain some through things.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to provide a little context for both council as well as the audience. As you're aware, I mean, the disciplinary process itself is a very important process to our organization. It's a balance of making sure that the employees have a transparent and fair process, as well as making sure that the administrators have tools that are predictable in how they lead their particular organizations. As per the charter, the council is charged with handling appeals of employees in disciplinary matters. Years ago, the charter was changed to allow for an administrative law judge to actually hear these cases that are appealed. But that process, as we heard, and it works, but I heard a wise man say, just because something's working doesn't mean it can't get, that's right, can't get fixed. So we looked at how we can improve this process. And so what this process and what you'll hear from Vicki as well as Valerie Malik from our office is how we can make this process much more efficient. And what that does is it allows for more predictability for the employees as well as the administrators, as well as give time back to staff that are supporting these appeals, as well as reduce attorney's fees costs for the employees and the unions that are supporting them. So with that in mind, I want to turn it over to them, but I do want to give a special shout out to the HR department, as well as Valerie and Phil from our side, and the police and fire unions and SEIU for the hard work they've been doing on this. Thank you.
So Wade said most of what I was going to say, is that we had a really good group that worked on this prior to my being part of HR. So I really think Valerie is the best person. I can do a high level, but she will do a much better job answering the questions than I would. So I'm going to turn this over to Valerie.
Good afternoon. I think Wade had a nice introduction into the committee that was formed back in 2016 to attempt to improve the disciplinary appeal process. Like he said, it was working fine, but we wanted to reach out and form a committee to try and see from the various union groups and from the HR department if we could make it better. And I believe that these proposed changes that you're going to be considering tonight would make a difference. So I want to tell you one thing first off. The resolution number is wrong on there, but it is right on your agenda. So in 2010, the City Council did adopt a resolution that changed the process from the City Council members hearing these appeals to the administrative law judges. So Wade did mention some of this. Why do we want to change this appeal process? Well, we wanted to improve it to be more uniform and efficient across all the departments because everybody had a different type of pre-disciplinary hearing letter. Everybody had a different process that they were telling their employees, this is how you appeal if you want to appeal. So we thought that it best to reach out to the departments and have a uniform, consistent process across all departments. And also we wanted to lessen time. We wanted to lessen the time to complete the appeal. Some of these were beginning to get pretty long and drawn out. And at the employees were suffering because it was taking so long to get a decision. We weren't able to lessen it a great deal, but we did lessen it some, and I am happy to report that I think that would get us the decisions quicker than we were getting them before. And then also, one of the complaints that I heard was that the administrative law judges weren't maybe getting enough information from the beginning, and I think a time or two we had a couple of that just didn't get docketed properly in Nashville. So we said, well, let's help the judges. Let's help by sending them more information when we send notice of appeal. So that way they have more to start with and they know what this is about. So the first, there's 3 different forms that the HR department created, and I'm going to go through these 3 and tell you what essentially we have done to make this process more uniform. First, the HR department, in concert with the Office of the City Attorney, created a notice of pre-disciplinary hearing. As you know, each employee facing potential disciplinary action of demotion or suspension or termination is entitled to a hearing, and every employee receives a hearing. So we created, along with HR, a form to promote this uniformity and consistency in our process. So what does the notice contain? It contains a nature of the alleged misconduct, the discipline to which the employee would be subjected, notification that the employee is entitled to present evidence at the hearing, and to bring an attorney or a representative of his or her choice. And here's the form. I know it's hard to see because we had to stretch it out to make it fit on a PowerPoint slide, but it does have a lot of key information. And again, each department would use this form. I'll also say too that the HR department is committed and already in the process of forming a training presentation to all the department heads and supervisors so that they will know how to use the form and what to do with it. And we can elaborate on that when I finish this. Maybe Vicki can give you an update on that. The second letter the second form that we created is what we're calling a hearing decision letter. This is the letter that once the employee has had their hearing and the department head has heard evidence from that employee and from the city, it makes a decision and sends the employee a letter. And this letter will contain, if there is any discipline, it'll contain the form of discipline, the effective date, and it will let the employee know that they have the right to request collaborative mediation. And I believe that's within 5 days of receiving the hearing decision letter. And if the employee elects to not request collaborative mediation, the employee has a right to appeal the department head's decision within 15 days of the date of the letter. And what this letter looks like. So again, you're going to see in the middle of the page a summary, and then there's a box to check if they need to write more information. This is what's going to tell the administrative law judge what happened. This employee, was insubordinate, received da-da-da-da-da. This is how they're going to know what's coming in front of them. Before we came up with this process, I believe Nicole was sending, because this was the only way, what we were doing before, we were having the employee send and write a letter, handwritten letter, I want to appeal. It was sent to Nicole. Nicole sent it to Nashville. This is what we're trying to change to make sure we have a more uniform process and information that Nashville can use to help our hearing process. And finally, the third form that this committee created along with the help of the HR department was what we're calling the Notice of Appeal form. As I just stated, we were just simply having the employee sign a piece of paper saying they wanted to appeal and sending it to Nashville. Now we have this appeal form that the employee will fill out, and then they will return it to the clerk of the city council. And this is the form, the Notice of Appeal form. You will note down 3/4 way down on the page, it says that I am appealing the disciplinary action listed above, which is filled in by the department head. I have read and filled out the Notice of Appeal form, and I have read the resolution number, and if the city council passes that tonight, that would be filled in, regarding administrative regulations for conducting employee disciplinary hearings, and it all goes as a packet. Nashville will get a copy of this. They'll get a copy of the hearing decision letter that contains the summary of the disciplinary action, and they'll get the resolution, if it's passed tonight, that has the rules in it for them to follow when they're conducting these hearings. Processing the appeal. After they receive the employee's request to appeal, the clerk, Nicole, will receive the following from an employee: Notice of Appeal form, hearing decision letter, the resolution if it's passed, and they'll be sent to the clerk Administrative Procedures Division of the Secretary of State's office, where the head of that division will assign the appeal to a judge. That's all I have. I want, if Vicki, if you don't mind, to elaborate on some of the training, or do you have any questions I should ask first?
Councilwoman Byrd?
Several.
Sure.
So let me make sure I've got this right. We're still using our administrative law judges.
That's correct.
And if we appeal again to that department to have a second judge review?
Currently, that is the
In the new
appeal
process.
It's the first judge, the one judge.
So you're appealing to the same judge that made the decision?
No. The department head makes the decision.
Right, that's what I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. So if I if I'm being disciplined and I ask for a hearing, who hears it?
The department head or the department head's designee.
So a department head is hearing something from his or her own department?
Yes, based on the information. They also have the president or the supervisors of the employee being disciplined or other people who have information about the alleged incident.
Is there any lack of due process since you're appealing, since you're complaining to the boss of the supervisor that caused the discipline?
Well, that's the way it's been historically since I've been here.
Oh,
So
I know that. I'm just
yes.
asking.
That is the process.
So we feel there's no bias there?
Well, most of the time, the department has, I mean, I can't speak for the department heads, but I do know that I've gone to a lot of these hearings, and I find them to be pretty fair and impartial.
I'm not criticizing
Yeah.
them. I'm saying they're put in an interesting position.
It is, yes, it
of
is.
appealing
Yes.
something from their own department that their own supervisor has allegedly done.
I guess the point is that the department head, along with the supervisor, would have the most information about what happened. So,
And you believe objectivity?
well, I think that I would hope so. I hope there's objectivity.
Okay.
You make very good points, Councilwoman Burrows.
Yeah. All right. I'm just thinking about that little due processy
Right.
thing. Okay. The other thing is, I would like in there that if you're using collaborative mediation, then I want it to be by a Rule 31 listed mediator.
It is, that is,
Is it
that
a
is
Rule
currently
31?
what?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to have properly trained.
That is, we do.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay, it's in there. Okay. So just so I've got this straight, the department head makes a decision about me. I appeal to the administrative law judge. That's
Right.
the appeal.
Which obviously is a neutral person to hear the second layer, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's good to get a little neutrality in there someplace. Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Vicky, one of the things that I've been speaking with HR is accountability. In other words, hopefully that management will actually get the advice of HR before they make some kind of disciplinary action. So I think that's one stage that they go through, and hopefully we'll push that issue.
Right, we have different levels of people within the HR department to engage at different places in the process so that we keep some of that, have a different face looking at it, a different role. So yes, that is something that we do.
No questions?
Okay, as far as training, administrators' training is going to be during administrative staff meeting next Monday. Our training department has been working on this for a couple of weeks now.
Any other questions? Attorney, want to say a few words?
Two quick points. One, we're constantly looking at ways to improve things. Right? That's something we listen to the employees. We obviously hear from council members and other the department heads on ways we can do things better. So that's number one. And I think a really good example of that is the collaborative mediation. We've seen a decrease over time of appeals because of that. And when we see that decrease, that also means that's a cost savings of paying those ALJs for that. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
So the department has, I think it's 3 who are trained. The department does have 3 people who have that mediation training.
Of the ones you have.
Vicky, one more time, can you go over the trigger of this? Can you go over the trigger, what triggered this in the first place? Because someone might think that if I get wrote up for being tardy or whatever, it's a trigger with this. So can you go over that one more time?
No, the pre-disciplinary hearing is for termination, suspension, demotion. So if you if your discipline is brought to that level, then you have the right for the pre-disciplinary hearing and to have someone there with you, either an attorney or a representative. And then you have the right for collaborative mediation or an appeal to the ALJ after that.
I have a question from Councilwoman Byrd.
One of the things, I don't know if you're familiar with the research project at Ohio State that was with the Postal Service. However, mediation was used before there was a hearing. And I did this for the Postal Service for the past 10 years. And what they found out is if immediately they went to mediation, that and the unions were part of it, if it obviated most of the complaints. So I don't know why we wouldn't do that first, make it go away first, and then take it on further if need be.
Are you saying hearing as the pre-disciplinary or the appeal hearing?
Somebody files a complaint against me, or let's say somebody files a complaint against me. And so what the HR people would say was, we're going to respect this complaint. However, while we're waiting for the paperwork, would you agree to go to mediation? And there was a mediation by a certified, listed, licensed, whatever you call it in the state. In Tennessee, it's listed. Mediator, Rule 31 mediator. And the reason they did it not was for any kumbaya reason, but what they did is the cases went away really, there's great research on it, went away really, really fast because most problems don't rise to the level of, if you will, legal sufficiency or whatever. And it takes so long for somebody to go through one of these processes that morale lowers. So you didn't stop the clock. And the union sat in on the mediations. So I'm wondering why we would put that second instead of first. Just curious.
If you take advantage of the mediation, it is before the time frame for this appeal. That is in between
Not
the
the
two.
appeal, the original hearing.
The original. That's something we could look at.
Yeah, so what happens is if people are sitting in the room and talking and working it out, because we used to listen to a lot of those things, and a lot of them was somebody was dissed by somebody or somebody, and they're very real problems, and they're morale busters, but you want to make it go away as soon as possible. That's what corporations do.
Right. Hopefully that level does not hit even the pre-disciplinary. There are levels before that where we do have people in the office and do mediation. So hopefully we will take a look at your idea.
Just
right?
a suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, there's no questions, so I appreciate you coming by and explaining. Right now, clerk, can we go ahead and go to resolution G?
A resolution to repeal resolution number 26612 and to adopt new administrative regulations for conducting employee disciplinary hearings.
No question. Can you go to H?
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Matthew Fraudenberg as a special police officer unarmed for the McCamey Animal Center to do special duty as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
No question. Can you go to I?
A resolution authorizing the Director of Human Resources to enter into an agreement with ComPsych Corporation to provide employee assistance program services to eligible city employees at the rate of $1.15 per employee per month for civilian employees and $1.28 per employee per month for sworn employees for 1-year term beginning April 1, 2018, with 2 additional 1-year term renewal options for an approximate annual cost of $33,775.
No questions. Can you go to next week's B?
A resolution authorizing the Director of Human Resources to enter into the First Amendment to the contract by and between the city and the Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport Authority in substantially the form attached to manage the authority's pension and certain employee benefits and as more particularly specified in the First Amendment.
No questions. Can you go to C?
A resolution authorizing the Director of Human Resources to enter into group insurance agreements in substantially the form attached with the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Air Pollution Control Bureau, the Enterprise Center, Inc., the Carter Corporation, DBA, Chattanooga-Hamilton County Convention and Trade Center, and the Chattanooga Board of Directors of the Fire and Police Pension Fund to offer coverage for certain employee benefits as specified in the agreements.
Well, no questions. This is no question. I think this is the last committee. I'd like to adjourn to 6 o'clock. You're welcome.
I mean, it just blew my soul to drive by that Mountain Creek project down there that I worked to help. Oh, it really. No, the thing about it is, this is in a resolution. The plan, the proposed. Yeah. It's in a resolution, so it's not like you'll have an opportunity. Right. Did you see the email that they sent about, Austin Lane? Of course. That's what he's saying, that's, you want an amendment? Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I'm just, you know, I hesitated. I hesitated. Man, you was dogged out.
Oh, my God.
You look good.
About 90%, I think. I'm about 90.
I mean, like I said,
Hey, Seth, before you leave, do you mind telling Councilman Ledford about the incident that took place in his district?
I know by now. You know by now. Come down there. Okay. By now, I know y'all know.
Hey,
He's not on contract
this is what y'all.
He's still there.
Yeah, but he's part-time temporary employee.
Amendment to.
That's bull crap. That's bull.
Found that out middle of last week before I went back out sick, so.
How can you have a supervisor temporary?
So I'm gonna take care of it.
Yeah, but it needs to be.
It needs to be in there. Because people
I've
go-
learned, I've
I know,
learned.
I agree.
I've learned you don't buy anybody's word.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I totally agree. That's why I didn't look at you cross-eyed. I'm like, okay, yeah. But what I learned also is that the ideology changed during the course of the development. You start out, I'm gonna do the right thing. I want 25 trees. By the time you're over, it's 3 stumps left.
Those developers and contractors, man. You
Yeah,
can't trust them. You can't trust them.
All right, yeah, I'm good. Okay. I'm good, yeah.
This is what I asked you. So,
A request?
a request. So you have, they called you about the oil manager
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So here's the thing.
Well, she asked me what I wanted. She hasn't given me a name.
Well, she hasn't. Part of it was, we looked at it. What we really need on that board is a white man.
White male?
You need a white man on that board. It is not diverse at all. So we need a white man.
Okay.
So, know anybody? We have some folks in our.
So you don't have anybody?
No,
in the database?
you want them in your district. Doesn't have to be your district. Okay, and we have
I
people.
don't, I don't think so.
No, we have folks in our database.
I'm just trying to find somebody to fill the slot.
Okay. All right. No, we got people there. I just wanted to make sure initially you think about like, color, but then in this one, there are no white males in that
But
board.
I think I answered. What's odd is I had asked Nicole, I think, to email, because I even told Courtney, I said, well, let me find out if there's a need for for a doctor, lawyer, male, female, whatever. And I think Nicole, basically, I think the email said, I think was told, no, there was, no, but
No particular skill set needed in that sense, but
maybe that's what it was, the skill set.
yeah, it may not be require skill set.
Diversity.
So, but I'll
Okay.
I'll look. We have folks in our database.
Okay.
So, all right, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that'd
All
be
right.
fine.
I'll just remember that you can't trust that damn
Testing. It's working.
Oh, we're busy. We got 30-something cases next month.
Come over, Miles.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, as you know, we're getting more national. Coming in to develop rights. Reaping the reward. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
Here's what's going on.
Y'all see, and it's been a concern. When it gets to that attorney thing, is predicted. Everybody has to take a shot at the upset. That's fine. We Did you hear we were waiting on the, yeah, we actually want to use this, basically take, we don't want to target, we don't want to target, methadone. Right. Medical clinic, professional office, word arm board, it's a little more generic. So you use that.
I'm the person. So I wanted to. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I changed phones. Okay.
That's fine. I hear you. That's fine. You can certainly do that. Yes.
Or we could put or in
No, we got to divide it. No, we divide it.
except for pedestrian trails and removal.
This is just, I would call this like the
Invasive.
invasive. Okay, we can start off by invasive. How do we get people involved? Thank you. Yes.
I've got a